Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Pamela, and you are watching Pam Entertainment TV, where we are going to go over celebrity legal news. Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. Diddy may be Freako, but he beat their Rico. Y'all, I'm watching. I'm seeing it all over my timeline. And as I told you before, we knew that the transportation, he had that in the bag. But baby, the jury has spoken. You know, they had come to a verdict between 2 and 5 yesterday. They were still kind of hung up on the RICO charge. So here is what they done. Let me pull up my information so we can kind of read it together. But as you all come in, make sure y'all hit that like button and make sure you subscribe. But baby. And again, I want to shout out P. Diddy Trials Update, Inner City Press, CNN, in NBC News. I think we've used the Washington Post, and we've used, I think that's it. So shout out to that. Also shout out to all of the content creators that have been out there that I have been following to get the temperature of the courtroom. So I do want to shout out Armand Wiggins. I do want to shout out, I'm going to shout her out to Tissa Tales. I do want to shout out that girl Henny. I do want to shout out Nick at Night. Uh, I do want to shout out Popcorn Planet. I do want to shout out Attorney Simone. Girl, is that legal? I do want to shout out Make It Make Sense. So I do want to shout out those content. You know, you all have done yeoman's work out there to give us the information. And I will say that because of a lot of the content creators that are out there, we are able to get different perspectives about what's going on. Again, I do advocate for there to be cameras in the courtroom, particularly for federal trials. I think we are too far into this for that not to be so, for it to be so antiquated. And I think that they could cut down on a lot of this craziness, if that's the right word for it. So I think that they can kind of, but shout out to all those people who are out here and they were covering the case. I do appreciate it as a content creator that couldn't get out there. I do appreciate all of the updates. So let's go here. Just want to kind of give you all some kind of perspective. So this is as for P. Diddy trial update. So I'm going to read her information. It's not that long, so it may not come up on the screen, but I do want I was trying to see if they had, you know how they have the people standing outside the courtroom? I was trying to see if they had that going on, and we played that. All right. So we don't see that, but let's get to what we do see, and we will play that. Sharing my screen. So we're going to go over what P Diddy trial updates. So, and this was reached about an hour ago. It says these are the charges: racketeering, conspiracy, trafficking of Cassie, transportation for Cassie, trafficking for Jane, transportation for Jane. Yesterday the jury had reached verdicts on count 2 through 5, but the court agreed that a partial verdict would not be accepted. They must continue deliberation on count 1. And I really see now that that worked very well for the defense. Sean Combs was seen praying as he sat at the defense table. God, please watch over my family. His family responded. His lawyers are some meters away talking to each other. Not a prosecutor seen at this time. The judge isn't in, and Combs has been escorted out. His family and supporters clapped in support to ease the tension, I'm sure. Combs isn't leaving the courthouse. He's just going downstairs to wait. There's still no word on whether the jury has reached a verdict. Yesterday, Judge Summer instructed them to go straight to the jury room upon arrival this morning. Agnifilio said that there's a new note from the jury. They've reached a verdict. Yes, they've reached a verdict on all counts. The rest of the lawyers and Combs' team are in. The prosecution have now filed in. The defense lawyers left the courtroom to confer with Mr. Combs. He went downstairs to wait in the holding cell, so they'll be with him there. Combs' family left but are now in. Combs is in. He smiled and nodded at his family before taking his seat. The judge is on the bench. The judge says, we received a note at 9:52 a.m. stating we've reached a verdict on all counts. Is there anything either side wishes to address before we bring the jury in? Both sides says no. Judge say, please maintain order when the verdict is read until the jury has exited. The jury is in. The 4-person jury 5 will be reading the verdict. Judge, is the verdict unanimous? Juror, yes, it is. Judge, please hand the verdict form to the deputy. The deputy will now read the verdict. Deputy, in the case of the United States versus Combs, count 1. What is your verdict? Jury, not guilty. On the charge of trafficking of Cassandra Ventura, jury, not guilty. On the charge of transportation for the prostitute, juror, guilty. On the charge of trafficking involving Jane, not guilty. And on the charge of transportation for prostitute involving Jane, guilty. The judges praised the jury for their 10 weeks of service, calling it inspiring and a sign of hope. He's asked the media not to question them. The jury leaves. Agnifilio wants Combs released. Agnifilio, he is no longer facing trafficking or racketeering charges. His plane is chartered and currently in Maui. He doesn't have access to it. This is his first conviction, and it's for the transportation-related offense. He should be released. Agnifilio, his family isn't present, can sign a bond. We're asking that he be released today to return to Two-Star Island. Judge, this is being raised just now. I'll hear from the government shortly. Are you suggesting that he simply walks out today? Agnifilio, yes. So Combs has been found guilty of the Mann Act, which I told y'all before, that's what's going to get you every time, because that is so simple. And I talked about it before about, y'all getting flued out and all this other stuff. So this case hasn't showed y'all anything. It is showing y'all that activity is illegal and that the feds can try to get you on that. Let's continue. However, he was not found guilty of running a criminal enterprise and 2 counts of trafficking. Comey, the defendant is facing a maximum sentence of 20 years. Even while the case was pending, he assaulted Jane and here in New York while preparing to surrender. He was found with drugs in his hotel room, clearly ready to commit the same offense again. Combs has already been in detention for 1 year. Now that has been cleared. Now that he's been cleared of racketeering and trafficking, the defense wants him out on $1 million bond before his sentencing, but the prosecution's saying no. Combs keeps shaking his head, which drew the attention. Combs does not want to go back to the MDC. He's shaking his head. Judge, I like letters from both. When can I expect them? In a few hours. All right. Letters by 1 p.m. We'll reconvene in the afternoon. I'll notify the parties when we set the time. Your Honor, Combs isn't a fool to violate any conditions. Adjourned. Loud clapping and cheering. Terry Garrett was so emotional after the verdict was given, she cried. Supporters shouted "Free Puff." As his family left the courtroom, there was a lot of clapping and cheers. Let's see if there's anything going on.
2 men kind of going back and forth arguing. So not sure, since I'm kind of across the
So this is what's going on outside of the courtroom.
Men are really getting into very heated debate. There's some clapping going on, some people cheering. So it's likely that they're just kind of, the emotions are pretty much running high after this morning's verdict.
Yeah, I can hear them just there in the background. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Mina, I have a super chat question coming in for you. I'd like to know how much of this is going to affect Diddy's future and career after all of this. Will this break him? This is from Miss Cheryl.
He will never, in my opinion, be viewed the same way. Maybe there wasn't enough evidence, or maybe the defense did an awesome job of discrediting the victims here. But I think that it is clear that these women were victimized, and there was illegal criminal activity going on, not just.
So let me pause. That was a great question. Oh, good morning, Loyalty. I didn't see that. Let me show you real quick. Good morning. I felt he was going to be found not guilty of the major charges when they started dropping cases, and he didn't call any witnesses. He'll probably get time served, max 2 years. Yes, because the 2 charges for the Mann Act can get you up to 10 years. He's already served a year. The judge could say, I'll give you 4 years for that, and have them run concurrently. And with that year possibly already served, you're looking for him to maybe get out in 6 months. We don't know. They can put him on house arrest. But I can tell you that they asked a question that I think was very important. How did he go from here? I will tell you one thing. The way we are going to, because first thing he needs is rehab. I'm going to tell y'all real quick. The very first thing that Diddy needs is rehab. He really needs to find him a good rehab, one whatever they use for celebrities that can't opt out of anything. And I think that the judge can order that. He can order. He's been in jail for this long. He can order him to a rehab facility to finish out his sentence for the next 6 or 7 months. He can definitely do that. That's the one thing he needs to. I don't know what he's gonna do with Jane, but I would say that he would probably need to stay away from the victims as far as Jane and Cassie. So I don't know what's gonna happen with Jane, because he's still paying for her stuff. So she is gonna have to get the mental thing to get out, because baby, they. And also too, is it just me? But I just believe that Jane was their worst witness for the prosecution. Jane was their worst witness, because everybody thinks it was Bonner. I don't think Bonner was the worst witness for him. I think Jane was the worst witness for him, because as soon as she started flipping and dipping, talking about doing the FOs with someone else, that let you know that she was a willing participant, and she wasn't trafficked. Now, was she pissed off? Was she tired? Abso-doggone-lutely. Abso-doggone-lutely. Did he lie to her? Yeah, he did. He lied to her. And here is the thing. I think that this case has shown that there is no such thing as a perfect victim. See, we like to see, and I think that has been the issue and the problem, is that we have come across these. We want to make sure everybody is a perfect victim. There is no such thing as a perfect victim. Some of these victims can have some issues and have some and possibly have done some crazy and possibly some illegal stuff. But victims can be victims, and I'm hoping that this case shows that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to have courage to come out and tell your story. Now, Pam Entertainment TV. This is my opinions. I told y'all I felt like he was gone on the trafficking. I told you that I saw all the information that they were giving in regards to the RICO. I just couldn't see it. It just sounded like I did not feel that there was some kind of conspiracy. Now, with Cassie, He was dead. He was, and I think the thing that we really need to get in our heads and to understand and understand clearly, because people always love to minimize DV. And I think here's the thing. Her charges were not going to be, all of those charges that we found under the RICO was not going to be heard unless they had charged Diddy with the trafficking and the transportation of Jane, because that was going to open up the window for them to go back and put those charges in. Once they didn't have that, it was a wrap. So what I'm saying is I believed, as far as I was concerned, if they had the wherewithal to, or had another person come in that they could have put in the gap that they needed, had another a victim or witness in, they may have gotten. But I think that as far as with Cassie was concerned, the coercion, in my opinion, was the DV. Now, did she have the thing to leave? You know, everybody's always big about all of that. Everyone knows that with DV victims, it takes them 6 or 7 times before they can go. And everyone knows that during those times, those are the most violent times for them, because the abuser doesn't want them to leave. So I can see, even I think that those attempts that she had with what's his name, Kid Cudi, and all of them, they just didn't see the signs, you know. And Kid Cudi said he felt like he was being played. And you cannot blame, again, 2 and 3 things can be true at the same time. You can't blame Kid Cudi for not wanting to be part of all of that. I mean, his car was burnt up. I wouldn't be bothered with that girl either. I mean, let's just be real. We are human here, and we're talking about human emotion. We're not talking about right or wrong. We're talking about reality. I wouldn't be fooling with her either if I knew my car got blown up. But here's what's interesting, and I said this at the beginning after the first week of the trial. I think the issue that people had was the fact that it wasn't salacious. Y'all remember, you remember when Jaguar Wright and all of them, the first day of the trial, everybody was out there and talking about all of this and how they stood for the victims and everything like that. See, that was before we understand and we realized what a freak off was. Because see, everybody had their own vision of what a freak off was. You remember that? Everybody was running around here believing freak offs was graduated from the white parties and stuff. And you had all these people come out here with all these little different content creators, and listen, and when I say that, I'm not standing with my nose above anything. I am saying that because everybody didn't know what was going on, so people were putting their own spin on things. You know, people had thought that there was snatching of minors off the street. People were talking about the mood enhancers being passed around like candy, being dropped in the baby oil. Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that? Everybody was talking about it was in the baby oil. And where are those content creators now? Particularly those of the Hollywood is demonic crowd, and talking about all this, the rituals and the sacrifices that people were going through. Where is that crowd now? Which is interesting. It's real interesting. Where is that crowd now? Shout out to the prosecutors. They did what they could with what they had. Shout out to the defense. They earned their pay, even though it did seem like they were the Keystone Cops and they were bumbling and fumbling at a couple of points, but they understood what was going on. They understood that their job was to poke holes, and that's exactly what they did. They poke holes. And also, I think it was, and let me just be very clear, I think Diddy did a really good job of gathering his team, and optically, they looked like the nation. And what I mean by that, and people will say, "Oh, well, I don't think that that was important and anything like that." But his team looked like the United States. There were women, there were men, they were in different races, different different disciplines. But when you looked over at the prosecution, it looked like a bunch of and this is no kick to my YT followers or anything like that, but it looked like the man, but the women. So I think, shout out to, because I love this stuff. I wish I had it to where I could have been in the courtroom. I would have loved to seen them bounce back and forth, and talk about the stuff the thing. I really wish I'd been there. But shout out to the two sides, the gladiating sides. I just believe that and I will go off on what I heard from people saying that were in the courtroom. Mark Agnafilo, being a native New Yorker, talked to the New Yorkers in there. I think a lot of the people on the jury are actually native New Yorkers, and I think he was able to talk to them in the language that they understood. So shout out to them. But the question that was asked as from this video that we're watching right now, and I'm going to pause it. The question that was asked is, where does Diddy go from here? Number one, Diddy needs to go straight to rehab, because his obsession with the mood enhancers, he really needs to get that under control. That is the very first thing that he needs to do, I think, upon release, or the judge can order that for him as part of his release. I know that they're going to come back within about an hour, because the judge wants to go over the sentencing plan, and possibly they'll go ahead and sentence him today instead of trying to come back. They may try to get everything done this afternoon. That's number one. The second thing that I think that's going to happen is we finna see a metamorphosis, because he was Diddy in Brother Love. I don't know. He's gonna probably come out and just be Sean Combs. Hello, Torian. Hey, Blue. You're exactly right. They overcharged him. And you know what? Since you've said that, I'm glad you said that. I'm very, very glad you said that. Because I do want to pull up, and I don't know about y'all, but when I looked at that verdict slip, that bad boy was confusing to me. They were hoping people are caught. Boy, did y'all go check on Tissa Tails? Because, baby, let me get in here. Shout out to Documentings. She has it. I should have made a copy of it, but I didn't. Here we go. So let me share this tab real quick. So when you look at this verdict slip, and I hope that you all can see it. Let me do better than this. Let me do this, because that verdict slip is hard to see. Give me one moment, people. I'm just going to go up here to the court docs. But I'm going to have that on there. The way here we go. Yes, let me get this one in. Let me close that up. Oh, that's not what I wanted. The way that this verdict slip looks, we go down here. So you have count one. He was found not guilty. He was found not guilty on count one. I think that they the only thing that they clicked on this one was probably this right here. This was probably the only thing they probably had anything for, but they didn't go ahead and tough it. Now look at this. You see how they have acts involving the trafficking and transportation in here? Those are part of the predicate acts. So those was counting. If they had charged him in between count 2 and 5, both of those things that had to do with Jane, then they could have gone back and charged him for this, because there was a 5-year window. There had to be an act that happened within the 5-year window of when the time that they discovered it. And the time that they discovered it is when Cassie put out her lawsuit. They then they went and investigated it, and they found Jane. They found Jane had been from 2021. So they went back 5 years, I believe, in 2021. And because they found a repeated series of acts, they could have from the last person that they found was Cassie, they were able to go back 10 years. That's the best way that I can be able to explain it. 10 years from the last act, that's the best way that I can explain it. The main person that they needed to really bring them home, and I'm speaking about the prosecution, was Jane, and that didn't happen. And see, here's the confusion. You have it here in the predicate acts, and it says, if and only you find the defendant guilty of count 1, did the pattern of racketeering include this was unnecessary, in my opinion. That was unnecessary. But the prosecution needed to know that. Count 2, the trafficking of Cassie Ventura and the Mann Act, they found it not guilty. And again, that had everything to do with her participation. And also, it had everything. I think that the jury didn't find, they believed that it happened to her. However, I think that when she testified that even after she had gone and she had gotten out of under his clutches, she still allowed for him to come back. And when he realized he didn't have a chance, he went on and left. Also, he didn't see the evidence the defense saw. They did exactly. They already knew. And I think, again, and this is when we talk about the law, there is the legal letter of the law, and then there is the spirit of the law, and then it's for the jury, you do count in. That's why they do voir dire, however you pronounce it, because you want to see the temperament of the jury, because the jury is the judge of the facts, and they have to apply their common sense. And this goes well beyond the scope. Now, again, the baby oil and the Astroglide, a key. No reason to have that much. A key. However, it's not illegal. But everyone wanted to make it because everybody, like I said, he's a fan. He's definitely a fan. But let me continue. Once they got down here, they had figured out what they were going to do. And I said before, once they started talking about making arrangements for the escorts to be flued out, I already knew that was an issue. And again, ladies and gentlemen, that Mann Act is the easiest way that the feds can get y'all butts in the jail. You can't fly them out for the illicit purpose. So you all that love to go to these all-star games, and fly these people out, that's a no. That is a no. Anyway, let me continue because I don't want to be on this stream long. Let me see what time it is. So it's 11:30 there. Because I'm curious, because they're going to come back at 1 o'clock and I'll come back at 1 o'clock. I'm curious to see whether or not the judge is going to sentence him today, or does he have to come back through a sentencing hearing? I don't know. But we were talking about I'm going off on a tangent, and I need y'all to reel me back in because I'll go off on a tangent again. I don't want this to be this long. Let's see. Good morning, Donna. Just being a good morning. Exactly. Now, here's the thing, and I will say this, and this is just me in regards to that, because Torian did mention. Here's the thing, and this is the way, because that law was initially designed to prevent Black men from transporting or going anywhere with a white woman if they was in a relationship with them, because back then at that time, each state put forth what their laws were as far as racial and segregation and desegregation and all those different things. And that was to prevent them from having to go from state to state to state. So they have this particular law that they have put out here on the books. Now, were they caring about the women and the children? No. That was the overall trying to reach to say, oh, well, we just don't want people to take advantage of these women and things like that. But it was main purpose was to keep Black men from being in relations with white women. In some states, they can be married to white women during that time. Very few, but they could. But they didn't want them to be transporting these women across the states. That is just that is the truth about that particular law. But here is the thing, and this is the way I would say this, and again, you just take it as you take it. I think at this point, I don't know exactly all the things that are going on. You gotta wait till things get settled down, particularly in the feds, because there's all these bills and beautiful bills and things like that being passed, and all of this stuff that's going on. But if there is some type of moratorium or anything like that, that particular act has to really be looked at. And that's just how I'm going to leave it in that. But going back to Diddy, and I'm going to say all this straightforward and be through with it. I think that Diddy needs, like I said, he needs to have rehab. That is very important. That should be very important in his sentence. I think going forward, I don't see will he lose any business or anything like that? I don't think so. I think that he will be able to I think he'll be able to come back from this as far as with business. But I do think, again, he's going to have to rebrand. I do think that he needs to stay away from Cassie. I do think he needs to stay away from Jane. I don't know what they're going to do with KK and D-Rock and all of those people. I don't know if the prosecution is going to file any charges against them or not. It would be futile, in my opinion, because if they didn't believe, if the head honcho didn't get clocked, I don't know why the subordinates will get clocked. And plus, you gave everybody and their grandmama immunity. So all those people are going to go on. So basically, all I'm going to say is Diddy may be a freako, but he is not guilty of the RICO. And that's just in basic terms. I think that I think that this whole thing where you keep mentioning on every count, it seems like you had the trafficking and the transportation in there. I think that you were confusing people. I think that they were confusing. And I think that the way that they were trying to charge, they were trying to, the prosecution was trying to rope the jury in to charging for the trafficking and the transportation on every turn that they got. But I think that confused them. I think that the jury saw, And I think they, if you think about the Jonathan Majors case, I think they split the baby. I think that they knew that people were very strongly opinionated about count one. I think that they were very strongly opinionated about count one. I think that if the jury was trying, I mean, not the jury, the prosecution was trying to hedge their bets and put, when they put in there the trafficking and the transportation in there, and then they turned around and charged him with the as a separate count, the trafficking and the transportation. I think that they were trying to hedge their bets, but again, it kind of folded in on them in the reasoning, and I'm reasoning is that it all signaled on this woman right here. They hedged all their bets on Jane. They hedged every one of their bets on Jane. If they had found these two, he would have been gone. But once again, this part right here with Jane was not as believable, because again, she attended a King's night with a whole nother rapper. And again, like I said, I know people be like, well, Pam, I'm just telling you what sunk it. That sunk it for a lot of people. So that's all I got to say on that. What say? Yep, no, he's a freako, but no RICO. Exactly. Exactly. I think if you all are out here being bosses and running companies and doing all of these things like that, and I said this before, I heard Keke Palmer say this. Diddy had a KK, he really needed an attorney. If he's going to do anything going forward, he's going to need to put an attorney on his payroll and have that attorney be exclusive for him and bounce off with him. He needs somebody that's just not going to just care about him screaming and hollering or anything like that. Break the law down to him, because he's not going to be able to move like he's moving before. I think probably with the next couple of years, his cachet in Hollywood is going to wane a little bit. But like I said, all he needs is another liquor deal. All he needs is that kind of support and everything like that, and he'll be all right. But now, this is the last thing I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna let this. I'm gonna stop this. This particular live. I will come back if I see that the judge is about to make a decision about Diddy leaving the courtroom today or not, leaving and being out on bond or being out on bail. I'm definitely going to check back in with you all, but I am going to lead with this. And this is just old Pam wisdom. You're going to have all of this stuff, and you are going to be popular. And I'm just speaking as men because the science says it. The science says it. So I'm just going to speak to men. You're doing all of that, building your business, doing all of these different things. Just as much time that you take to build that business and form those relationships, it's so very important. And I'm speaking to men because the science backs it up. It's just important. It's just as important that you spend that time finding you a good mate. Now, Diddy has some issues, in my opinion, that he also not only does he need the drug therapy, but he also needs some other stuff going on, because I do believe that there are some things going on with Diddy that he needs to now address as his big age of 50 something years old. It's not too late. He needs to address it, because had those things been addressed, I don't think that the manner of which that these things had come out would have. But for a lot of you all, it's for some of you, it's better for you all to then invest the time, to invest your time and your money and things like that, and finding you a good mate. Because I know a lot of times some of you all talk out the sides of your neck. You spend a lot of time trying to make the IG models into your perfect object human, instead of trying to find someone whose character meets your own stuff. And that's where I'm going to leave that. So again, shout out to Diddy and Diddy's team, who who read the jury, who understood who they were working with, who was able expertly to poke holes in the story. Again, I think Diddy pulled a great team in order to do that. Shout out to the prosecution. You did what you could. You presented the information. I will say that it had that information been a little bit cohesive, you all were bouncing around everywhere. I wish that information would have been a little bit cohesive, but it wasn't. So, but shout out to y'all for getting stuff together and trying to get this case put out there. I know that it messed up your statistics like it did. That 90, what was it? The 90 some percent, it may be now like 95% because y'all didn't get the RICO like y'all thought y'all was gonna get the RICO. So shout out to y'all. I do thank every last one of you, all the people that have because of my coverage of this case, and you all have been following me. I really do appreciate it. I thought we were going to go up to Idaho and do that case up there, but it looks like he has put in for a plea deal, so I don't think that we're going to do that. I would love for I'm still waiting for that the OnlyFans, the lady that killed her boyfriend, the OnlyFans worker that killed her boyfriend, Christian Umbumseli. That's coming out in Florida. That case hasn't come through fruition just of yet. I'm going to go back and look at all the court information in regards to that, because that is a case that I want to cover. We still have all those lawsuits. What do you all think? And I'm being serious. How do you think that this not guilty verdict is affecting all of the lawsuits that have been filed, particularly all these lawsuits that have been filed by Tony Busby? They have pulled all these people and all of that. How do you think that this not guilty verdict on the RICO case affects the lawsuits? Because let's even think about it. Because had he been charged with the RICO, had he been charged with the RICO, they weren't going to get no money because the government was going to take all of that. So now that he hasn't been charged with the act that was going to take his assets, so to speak, how do you think this affects the RICO? That's interesting. Because you remember since September? I think Busby and a couple of other lawyers, I think since September, he's had an extra 20 something cases. How is that going to happen? When I come back on the stream after to see whether or not the judge is going to, what the judge is going to do, if he's going to offer him bond until he gets sentenced or whatever he's going to do, I will jump back on the stream. But keep that in your head. How do you think things are going to proceed now that he's not been charged with the racketeering charge? And Tony Busby and all these other lawyers that have filed their suit. Because you remember around the time that Cassie filed her lawsuit, there was a young lady who said that she was a teenager when she had that in her lawsuit. She talked about she was a teenager. You still have Little Rod that's in there. You still have, you no longer have the VMA one, but you still had the couple of cases of the people that worked for him. I think one person was not a bodyguard, but worked security. So I think that you had all of that going on. You had a couple of people that said that they were given mood enhancers and they felt like they were taken advantage of. You have all of those different people that are coming out with all those things. And all of this, y'all, is supposed to be tied to them going to the white parties or the Hampton parties or the yacht parties and all of these other stuff. And we also see that there's just been filed a lawsuit against Diddy and his son. And I'll probably go ahead and read that. It's 20 pages. Just for the things, because like I said, now everything feels like people are trying it. Everything feels like I feel like he wasn't charged with the other things that are hearsay. And possibly too, that's going to be something that Busby, from what I understand, is good. He's like Justin Baldoni's lawyer. He's good at making and negotiating deals. But at this point, now that Diddy is going to be able to get on his feet and be able to really work hard in regards to these lawsuits, I think you'll find a lot of people dropping out of these lawsuits. I think you'll find a lot of people dropping out of these lawsuits. I just really, truly do. All right, people. Again, Diddy may be a freako, but there is no RICO. He was found guilty of the 2 charges of transportation for the purpose of the prostitute, 1 count with Cassie and 1 count with Jane. So we are definitely this case is effectively over, except for the sentencing. Again, he could get up to 10 years for this case. I'm looking at the judge is going to have these sentences run concurrently, probably give him 5 years, maybe give him anywhere from 4 to 5 years, and have them run concurrently, give him time served. He may only serve 6 more months in jail and then come back out, because like I said, he's been in jail for about a year. And so I think they have to serve a good portion, was it 2/3, maybe a half and 2/3, I believe it's something like that. But he's already been in there a year. If the judge sentences him from anywhere from because he could sentence him up to 10 years. If he sentenced him, like I said, 2 years for each charge, that's 4. He's already served a year. He probably will serve another a few months in jail, and then they'll go ahead and let him go. So we will see what he will do in regards to that sentencing. This afternoon, the judge is wanting to hear each side's opinion in regards to Diddy being released on bail or not. So we will definitely see, because Diddy doesn't want to go back to jail. So, I don't blame him. And particularly for the charges that was supposed to carry the most jail time, he has beat those charges. So if he can go home on these lesser charges, or like I said, if they can work out a deal to where, and I don't even know if the feds do house. Does the feds do house arrest? Where he has to wear like an ankle monitor? I mean, do they do house arrest that he can go like a certain places during the day, but he has to have his behind at home and he can't have certain people around him and all this stuff? Do they do that, or is it straight to jail, do not pass go? Anyway, people, thank you all so much. Again, I want to thank everyone, all the new subscribers that I got from watching this case. I've already told you I'm gonna go over the lawsuit from that's filed against his son and Diddy. I'm gonna go over that particular lawsuit. Again, I'm waiting for the Christian Umuseli, but if there's another case that kind of comes out and piques my interest, I'm definitely going to let you all know. And we'll go from there. But anyway, so Diddy is free. Diddy is telling y'all to take that to the bank. So we do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. So as my coverage of the Sean Diddy Combs case is over, I may go ahead and pick up back with the Justin Baldoni information. I will be riding and skating on stuff that has already happened and kind of forming my opinion about what's going on. And we'll go from there. And like I said, if there is a court case that tickles my fancy, I definitely will be going over that. All right, people. We do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, please tell a friend, tell a kin, tell a coworker, tell that heifer that you can't stand that I'm over here making these videos. And I will see you all this afternoon. Excuse me. Bye-bye.